Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and today I'm coming at you with my top 10 plane ride board games. These are games that offer a lot of fun gameplay in a very small, not package, but game area. So that means that you're going to be able to play on your little table tray mat or potentially even in a smaller area. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the games that I love to bring on plane rides. My number 10 is going to go to the game Infinity Gauntlet, a love letter game, and honestly, this could be pretty much any of the love letter games. This is a very small micro game of predictions as you're trying to either end the game with the highest number in your hand or you're trying to predict the enemy's numbers and try to make them discard those cards. Now, the Infinity Gauntlet version though takes the idea of the Marvel IP of Thanos versus the Avengers, and the Thanos players trying to assemble the gauntlet of Infinity Stones and they win instantly, or they're going to be trying to defeat a certain number of heroes. Now, inversely, the heroes are going to be trying to defeat Thanos a number of times by using their cards. So their cards are going to be similar to the original love letter, where you're going to be trying to predict specific numbers to deal damage. You're going to need to do that damage a certain number of times, and eventually the heroes will win. Now, the heroes are going to get more turns than Thanos, but Thanos' cards are just so powerful. I think this is a really fun style of game, very quick, where you're going to be throwing card after card, reliving that epic battle of the Avengers versus Thanos, and it's done in a great little package. So my favorite thing about this game have to be the different abilities of the Thanos player. I love how the stones manipulate and change the normal effects of the love letter cards and do so in really fun and interesting ways. So it feels really satisfying when you get to use all these different stones and then finally snap those fingers and win the game. In addition, this works really well in a plane ride because one player will be the Thanos player and the other player will take part as the heroes. So it's a great back and forth little two-player game with a fantastic theme. So that's my number 10, Infinity Gauntlet, a love letter game. My number 9 is going to go to The Mind, a game of psychic links where you and a partner, the person sitting next to you in the plane, are going to be playing cards to a central pile. And in the central pile, you got to go from lowest to highest. Now, it sounds easy at first, but the trick here is that the entire game is played without communication. So it's all about kind of timing the cards you play and hoping that you have given enough time for the other person to kind of get in sync with you and follow your lead. It's such a fascinating concept, and my favorite part about this game has to be the level up system. I love that every round you're going to have a certain number of cards, and you're going to add to that each round. So you get just add a card, level 5 cards, level 6 cards, so on and so forth. And the more cards you have, the more chance for errors that you have, but also the more numbers you're going to be able to kind of get in sync with. So I think it's a really interesting twist where it becomes a little bit easier when you have more cards because you're able to play back and forth as opposed to kind of just guessing. You have more guesses when you have smaller amounts of cards, but also more room for mistake. So I think this works extremely well, particularly the base version because you just have that single pile, but this is one that I'm really enjoying. That's my number 9, The Mind. My number 8 is going to go to the game Encore, also known as Knock-'em-all. So this is a small roll and write game where you're going to be rolling 2 dice, and based on what you roll, you're going to have a number and a color, and the person who's rolling picks the numbers that they want. Cool thing about this game in the airplane setting is you just flip the lid over, and that becomes your dice tray. It works really well. You roll the dice up, and you and the other person is going to be going back and forth. It makes a lot of sense, and my favorite part about this game are actually the wild system. So the wild system here is really interesting. You have a black die and you also have a question mark. If you get the black die, you can make it any color. If you get the question mark, you can make it any number. However, you only have a certain number of these you can use. So if you use them early to try to reach for like the first come first serve bonuses of completing all the colors or specific columns, then you are going to really limit yourself in the later game. And I think that's such a great decision. I love how you always have the choice to use these, but you usually will have other options that are not as powerful that you may have to take instead. I think this is just such a solid system, one that I really enjoy and makes a fantastic playing game. That's my number 8, Encore or Knock-'em-all. My number 7 is going to go to the game The Crusoe Crew, and this is a stand-in for all sorts of these graphic novel adventure games. So the way they work is it's essentially a choose-your-own adventure with lots of puzzles and whatnot. It may have a map that you're writing notes on. In this one in particular, you'll have a little map that you're traveling around. But this does something really cool with the system. Now, my favorite part about this system actually is the fact that each player has their own copy of the book, and each book that each player has is going to have you seeing different things. So it encourages cooperation communication and encourages talk to one another because you're going to see stuff that the others don't. And it's great. It gets you talking, gets you communicating, and really has that cooperative feel because you are trying to share the information you have or ask potentially what others may see. This is such a great system. I'm not going to spoil any of the pictures or any of the pages. I want you to experience this yourself, but it is a great little game. I love how it works, and if you're taking it on a plane ride, it makes for a perfect companion. So great. The theme is on point, and I love the different characters. It really gives me a feeling of something like Luca from Disney, so really enjoy this. That is my number 7 Crusoe Crew. My number 6 is going to go to the game Regicide, a game that is played with a standard deck of 52 cards, but it does so in a cooperative way. It does a really good job of mimicking kind of a boss battling style game where you're going to be running through monster after monster, using the cards at your disposal and just trying to outlast them. Now, the way you're doing this is the card will have a certain number of hit points, so make sure you print off a reference card to get all that health before you go. Otherwise, you can just use a deck of cards. So you'll take all the face cards, and they have a certain amount of health based on the one you're fighting. In addition to the health points, they also have damage and an immunity. So each card, when you play it, is going to deal damage to that monster, as well as be able to do some cool ability. And they all make a lot of sense. Diamonds draw, the spades are your shields, they defend. Clubs, you club them, you deal double damage, and the hearts heal. Every single enemy you fight, though, is going to turn it off. And that's my favorite part about this game, is the fact that you have to predict when these immunities are going to come up and when to prioritize playing certain cards. So now you may have, in a 2-player game, you may have a small amount of cards in your hand, and you really need to prioritize drawing, but doing so may make you deplete some of your stronger cards when taking damage. You may want to put up a shield to defend from this thing, but if you do that, you're going to lose out on this other opportunity. There's a lot of really cool choices here, and every turn is a new puzzle with the cards that you have in your hand. It's a lot of fun to try to outpace and outlast these different bosses, and it just gets harder and harder as you play, and it's going to be one that you come back to. And if you end up not liking the game or you get sick of it, you got a deck of 52 cards, so you have so many more games that you can jump into as well. It also makes for a great airplane game because very similarly to the Mine, each player is going to have just their hand of cards and be playing to a central pile, so it's really easy to play on that single tray. So it works extremely well, one that I find myself coming back to a lot, one that me and Ariana really enjoy. This is Regicide, my number 6. My number 5 is going to go to the game Railroad Inc. Challenge. This is another roll and write style game where each player is going to be drawing tracks of all different sorts, whether it be roads or actual railroads. And you're going to do this through the use of dice. So you'll have a small pool of dice that you'll be rolling, and everybody is going to allocate those dice onto their board. My favorite part about this game is the fact that there's just so much content for it, and you can throw in a lot of these expansions into one of these small box games. So not only is the package small, but the play space is small because each player is going to have their own little board, their whole writing, and you just have those dice that you're rolling that you'll be communally using. So it's very easy to play, very easy to pick up, and extremely customizable based on how many dice you get to bring. If you check our organizing video, we have a way that we have stored pretty much all of the expansion content in a single base game inside of one package, and that's the way we bring this around. I recommend that you do get this lush green edition because it is definitely the most well received out of all of the copies, and it will fit all of the other expansions into its core box. I think this is a very solid system with lots of room to explore, and it has little objectives in addition to the expansion components that are going to keep you coming back for more. This is a great puzzle, one that is just easy to play but very fun and customizable. That is Railroad Inc., my number 5. My number 4 is going to go to the game Fox and the Forest, a trick-taking game for 2 players. Now, once again, it works extremely well because you're just playing with that person to your left or right. This game tackles trick-taking in a very unique way, where you're going to be playing cards and trying to win tricks just like a normal style game. However, if you win too many tricks, you're actually going to give all your points to the opponent. So there's this really cool aspect of making sure that you win some, but also keeping your distance and maybe giving up a couple of tricks here and there. There's a lot of unique powers that work really well in the system. There are 3 suits, so nothing too crazy or convoluted to check, but all of the effects work extremely smoothly and well together. My favorite part of the game, though, definitely has to be that scoring mechanism. I really love how you have to be very careful with how many tricks you're giving or taking, and I think it's really fun that you have that ability to shoot the moon when you're playing, and you can forcibly give your opponent all the tricks, and I just think that's really fun to kind of teeter that line. This is a fantastic experience, a great 2-player game, and there's also a duet version if you want to play the cooperative mode. Now, I do suggest that you play the original base game version if you are taking it on the plane. There's no board, so it's less fiddly, and if you have turbulence, nothing's going to shake around, but the cooperative version is my preferred version just in general. I like cooperative games, and I think the duet style works really well. Once again, another one that Ariana and I really enjoy. So that's number 4, Fox in the Forest. My number 3 goes to the game That's Pretty Clever, a roll and write from a trilogy of roll and writes that is amazing. It's all about combos, going up different tracks, and playing little mini games, and just doing your best to score the most points possible. Now, this game at its core uses this fantastic mechanism of dice rolling, where on your turn, you roll all the dice, and you're going to take one, and the dice you take, you use that for whatever color it's associated with, and then every die that's lower goes in the center on this dish. And this works really well in the airplane because, once again, you just flip both boxes over. One's the dish, one's the dice tray. Boom, you're ready to go. It works super well. Now, whatever dice that you don't take, you'll end up putting on a dish, and then you'll roll whatever's left over. So you have the choice here of saying, hey, do I take these high numbers and get potentially less options in the future, or do I take low numbers to ensure I have better options? Now, all of these games work exactly the same. I would definitely start with the original That's So Clever, but if you're looking for something a bit more extra with different mini games to switch things up, there are 3 in this line, and all are good. I think that my favorite one has to be the third one, Thrice as Clever, but if you are just starting to get this original one, there's a reason that it's so highly regarded, because it is so fantastic. My favorite part of the game does have to be the combos, though. I love how you go up these different tracks, and there will be all these little bonuses underneath, and so sometimes you can get into turns where one thing triggers one thing triggers one thing. It's just immensely satisfying, and when you finish, it's going to be one that you just want to roll up, get another sheet, and play again. This is a fantastic game, fantastic experience. That's So Clever, my number 3. My number 2 is another roll and write style game that's a bit more involved, a bit more thinky, that has that similar style of using dice to take actions, and that is Fleet, the dice game. The theme is on point here, as you own a fleet of fishing ships, and you're going to be taking those ships out to do all sorts of things. Earning money, catching fish, building up your town, and you do this through dice drafting. Now, these dice are actually split into 2 phases, and that's my favorite part about this game, is how clean the phases are and how much fun they each are. In the first phase, you're going to be focused on all of these different fish, and each fish you get is going to unlock a license, which gives you some passive ability, as well as boats that are going to catch points or fish for you every income phase. And then in the second phase, you're going to have all these dice that you're going to use to build up your city. These come in the form of the wharf, which gets you all sorts of little abilities, the harbor, which gets you even more scoring opportunities and more boats, and even the ability to do more fishing phases, or you can go to the market in order to sell all those fish you've caught for additional bonus actions in the form of coins. There's just a lot of things to do here, a lot of fun, and if you've played it a lot of times, the new edition comes with these really cool captain cards, so you can actually have a unique startup ability and some more endgame scoring potential. There's a lot to love here. It's another one where as soon as you play it, you're going to want to play it over and over again. The theme works extremely well, and it's one that I just love exploring the different strategies. Are you going to go shrimp this time? Are you just going to be rich with all the lobster? How are you going to approach this game? This is another one that fits extremely well onto that plain tray as well. You'll just have your 2 sheets in front of you, and then pass the dice around, and that's the game. It works extremely well, one that I really enjoy, one of my favorite roll and writes as well. This is Fleet, my number 2. My number 1 is going to go to the game Fantasy Realms, a game of hand management, where on your turn you simply draw a card from the deck, add it to your hand, and then decide which one of those cards that you want to put into the center. In future turns, you can take from the center or the top, but once there are 10 cards in the center, the game is over, and you look at your hands, and hopefully you've tried to make some great combination of scoring. There are so many different cards in this game, and that's my favorite part, is just the variety of options you can take. Every single card is unique, and when you draw one, you're hoping for potential combos, and you're evaluating them right then and there to try to make the best hand possible. It's a great little hand management game that takes no space, because you literally just have that area in the middle where you're going to be storing your cards, and then you're holding the rest, and that's where the game is happening, in that hand management. I love the way that the combos work, and my favorite thing are the abilities that are just absolutely bonkers. I really like how there's a lot of cards in this game that push you in unique strategies and unique directions, with maybe trying to get specific cards or trying to get runs of cards. Particularly the artifacts give you a lot of ways to do really funky things. It is just a blast making this work, and the new expansion adds lots of new suits that add for even more compelling and interesting strategies. It's a game that I can't recommend enough, a fantastic hand-building, hand management game that just has super quick, compelling gameplay. That is Fantasy Realms, my number 1. And that's my list. Those are my top 10 plane ride board games. What do you think of the games I put on this list? Are there any games that you enjoy bringing with you on plane rides? Are there any places that you're going in the future? Well, you'll need to bring some of these games. I hope that you have a great holiday season and that when you go on your future plane rides, you are staying safe as always. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.